Now to a lawsuit against the President of the United States. Now we're all getting used to Trump going after the press. Here, just a small sample.
I think the political press is among the most dishonest people that I've ever met.
As you know, I have a running war with the media. They are among the most dishonest human beings on earth.
Media outlets like CNN and MSNBC are fake news.
Just stick with us. Don't believe the crap you see from these people, the fake news.
I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are. They are the enemy of the people.
The president, of course, he's free to express his opinions about the media. He's got First Amendment rights like everybody. But the lawsuit filed by PEN America says using the powers of the presidency to punish the press is unconstitutional. It states he's done that many times by threatening, among other things, to pull credentials from critical reporters, threatened to yank broadcast licenses from stations he doesn't like, and also trying to block the merger between Time Warner and AT&T, all because of CNN. PEN America is being represented by Yale Law School's Media Freedom and Information Access Clinic. And Iris spoke with two students who are working on the case, Catherine Martinez and George Wong. So for even the casual observer out there, they have seen over the past couple of years the president repeatedly taking issue with his critics and threatening to use not only the full power of the office of the presidency and even beyond for reprisals. Whether or not he's followed through on them, he's certainly made the threats. But walk through where official acts by a president would violate the First Amendment and his oath to uphold the Constitution. Explain to me, in your guys' view, where it goes from rhetoric to something criminal.
Absolutely. So what our lawsuit alleges is that the president violates the First Amendment when he uses or threatens to use his official government actions to retaliate against journalists or media organizations for coverage that he disagrees with. And a concrete example of this is when journalists have been barred or even removed from events and press conferences just for asking questions that the president deems inappropriate. These are crucial parts of their jobs as members of the press to inform the public about important issues, and they're really hanging at the whim of the president.
You know, though, Catherine, when you hear fake news or enemy of the people, it may not sound very presidential, but the president does have a First Amendment right. Talk about where you see that bright line between him just getting ticked off and saying some pretty angry rhetoric and, by virtue of being the president and not Joe Smith, that carries a different expectation, if not even legal line, as to where you can and can't go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right, Rich, that the president has his own First Amendment rights, and we certainly agree that the president's allowed to, say, call people fake news or criticize the press that he doesn't like. Where it becomes a problem is, like as George was saying, is when it transitions over to action and when the president is using the machinery of government, his position as the president to be able to direct regulatory action, that becomes a problem. So we see there's a very bright line between speech, saying fake news, criticizing certain journalists he doesn't like, and when he's using the government power to retaliate against them for their speech. That's sort of where we're drawing the line.
George, though, there is a distinction between the president, talking a big game and actually doing it. He talked about revoking broadcast licenses. He threatened to go after Amazon because Jeff Bezos, he wasn't comfortable with the coverage he was getting from Bezos' Washington Post. But at the end of the day, he didn't do any of those things. Is it still, beyond chilling, is it criminal to talk a good game but not to follow through?
Well, we think that an important part of the follow-through here is his actual direction to government agencies and regulatory agencies to go through with this. Certainly, even if the regulatory action doesn't eventually happen, I think his direction to these regulatory agencies is the type of conduct that crosses the line that Catherine was talking about.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to note that he did, on the campaign trail, he said that he was going to, if I become president, I'm going to stop this, talking about the AT&T Time Warner merger. And then the DOJ did sue over that. So that's one instance where we see follow through from the president's threats, following through by regulatory agencies, in this case DOJ. We also think another sort of component of this is that speech or threats on their own, retaliatory threats on their own, can be enough to chill speech or to prevent people from speaking. It doesn't have to be an actual, you don't have to jail a journalist in order for their rights to be violated. You can threaten, you can throw a whole bunch of problems in their way for them to be able to do their job, and that's at the point it becomes a First Amendment issue.
Certainly the president has been no stranger throughout his life to lawsuits. To that end, does the suit try and also show pattern in that this has been behavior that didn't start when he went into the Oval Office? This has been repeated in both his private life when he was a candidate and now the president. Do you try and show that he has tried to have abuse of power in the past and this also carries over as commander-in-chief or not?
Yeah, we think the complaint does a good job of walking through each of we have 4 sort of main categories in the complaint talking about these different kinds of retaliatory action. And we think the complaint does a good job of stepping through, when President Trump was still the candidate into when he came into office in 2017, this being a progressive common thread.
And I think it's exactly this pattern of conduct that really differentiates Trump from any prior activity that's occurred. This pattern absolutely contributes to this chilling effect across the entire media landscape.
Now, who has standing here, guys? And I ask that because not just with obviously you folks at Yale, but also the folks at PEN. At the end of the day, isn't it Jeff Bezos who's going to need to be party, or isn't this the folks at CNN who can say, yes, we've been harmed? Who's the person coming out saying that they personally or as an organization have been harmed by the president's deeds or words?
So as you know, our client here is PEN America. PEN America is a literary organization made up of writers, journalists, and media professionals, and their mission is to protect open expression. We absolutely feel that PEN America has standing to sue here, and standing goes beyond just the parties that you mentioned before, like Bezos and CNN. We believe that PEN America, based on their mission and the fact that their members are exactly these media professionals that are being threatened, gives them standing.
I think there's a second point, too, is that the Supreme Court has recognized that there's also a right to receive or a right to listen. And since PEN America's members are journalists or writers or speakers, they often rely on information from other media entities or other news organizations in order to do their own work. And if the president is impermissibly interfering with that ability to receive information from others, that also gives them standing.
So finally, guys, where are we now in the status of this suit, and where do you hope this eventually gets heard?
So we filed last Tuesday in the Southern District of New York, and the government has 60 days to respond to our complaint. So we're waiting to see what they argue in response and how we'll tailor our arguments in response to them. But that's sort of what was coming down the pipe for us in the next 2 months.
And what are we seeking here for damages?
So what we've asked for in this suit are 2 things. One is a declaratory judgment that what the president is doing here is illegal and violates the First Amendment. And the second is an injunction to prevent the president from furthering issuing these threats and use of government action against his detractors.
Well, it's a fascinating case, and I wish you guys the best of luck with it. Catherine, George, thank you both for the time.
Thank you so much.
And RFL will be right back. Stay with us.